Security Officer Leonard Hayes had been with Scottsdale Premium Outlets security for 6 years when he walked into a situation that would destroy his career and cost the property management company $21.9 million. He was 38 years old, experienced enough to recognize a medical emergency, but apparently convinced that his authority over mall property superseded someone's life. One Saturday afternoon in the parking lot of an upscale Arizona shopping center, he saw a black man holding a rescue tool near a luxury SUV and assumed crime instead of rescue. What Hayes did next, ignoring a fire department uniform, dismissing witness testimony, and physically restraining a fire captain while an infant cooked in 140-degree heat, would become proof of how racial assumptions kill common sense and destroy careers. A black man in his early 40s, Captain Marcus Webb, was holding a Halligan bar against the rear passenger window of a silver Mercedes GLE. His Phoenix Fire Department uniform was visible, badge number clearly displayed on his chest. No crime, no vandalism, no threat, just a fire captain trying to prevent an infant from dying in a locked car. But Officer Hayes saw him through a filter so distorted by assumptions about who commits crimes in luxury mall parking lots that he couldn't process a uniformed fire captain as a legitimate emergency responder. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Scottsdale Premium Outlets sits on Loop 101 and Mayo Boulevard in North Scottsdale, Arizona. It's the kind of upscale outdoor shopping center where designer stores, Gucci, Prada, Coach, Michael Kors, line-wide walkways under desert sun. The parking lot is massive, filled with luxury vehicles and rental cars from tourists. Property values in the surrounding area average $800,000. The typical Saturday shopper is affluent, mostly white, carrying multiple designer bags. It was 2:15 p.m. on a Saturday in June. The Arizona sun had pushed the temperature to 94 degrees. The asphalt radiated heat, making it feel closer to 105. The parking lot was packed, but not chaotic. Families walked to their cars. Teenagers clustered near the food court entrance. Engines idled. Air conditioners blasted. A gentle breeze offered no relief. Interior car temperatures in Arizona's summer sun routinely exceed 140 degrees within 20 minutes. Every year, children die in hot cars. Every first responder knows the signs: condensation on windows, unresponsive child, panicked bystanders. It was the kind of afternoon where emergency response training either saves a life or documents a preventable death. Captain Marcus Webb had been with the Phoenix Fire Department for 18 years. 18 years of structure fires, medical emergencies, vehicle extrications, and community service calls. He'd started as a recruit in 2007, graduated top of his academy class, and spent his first 4 years as a firefighter at Station 12 in South Phoenix. He'd been promoted to engineer after 6 years, then to captain after 13. He'd responded to over 4,000 emergency calls. He'd pulled victims from burning buildings, performed CPR on cardiac arrest patients, and cut teenagers from mangled vehicles after highway crashes. His crews called him meticulous. His supervisors called him the captain who never missed protocol. Webb had graduated from Arizona State University with a degree in Fire Service Administration, then completed his paramedic certification at Gateway Community College. He'd earned his Fire Officer I and II certifications, his Hazmat Operations certification, and his Technical Rescue Technician qualification. He'd taught classes at the Phoenix Regional Training Center. The Phoenix Fire Department had awarded him the Medal of Valor after he entered a fully involved apartment fire to rescue an elderly woman trapped on the second floor. The Arizona Fire Chiefs Association recognized him as Captain of the Year in 2019. At 42 years old, Marcus Webb was exactly where he'd worked to be, a respected leader responsible for training the next generation of firefighters. He was married with 2 daughters, 12 and 9. He coached youth soccer. He volunteered at community fire safety events, teaching kids about smoke alarms and escape plans. He'd sacrificed time with his family for 24-hour shifts, holidays on duty, and the physical toll of carrying 60 pounds of gear into burning buildings. That Saturday afternoon, Webb was off duty. He'd spent the morning at his daughter's soccer tournament in North Scottsdale. After the game, his wife had asked him to stop at the outlet mall to pick up a birthday gift for his mother. He'd arrived at 1:50 p.m., parked near the Polo Ralph Lauren store, and walked inside. He wore his Phoenix Fire Department duty uniform because he was heading to the station for a training session at 4 p.m. His badge number, 3847, was displayed on his chest. His captain's insignia was visible on his collar. His department-issued radio was clipped to his belt. He looked like what he was, an off-duty fire captain running a quick errand. He'd spent 20 minutes inside the store, found the gift, paid, and walked back toward his truck. As he crossed the parking lot, he heard it. A woman's voice, high-pitched, panicked, screaming for help. He turned and saw a cluster of people gathered around a silver Mercedes GLE. A woman was frantically pulling on the driver's door handle. A man was trying the rear passenger door. Through the rear window, Webb could see a car seat and a small figure slumped inside it. An infant, maybe 8 months old, not moving. Webb ran toward the vehicle. His training kicked in immediately. Assess the situation, identify the hazard, initiate emergency protocol. He reached the Mercedes within seconds. But to one person watching from the security office, Marcus, Webb's sprint across the parking lot looked like something else entirely. And that person had decided to intervene. Leonard Hayes was 38 years old. He'd been the head of security at Scottsdale Premium Outlets for 6 years, promoted from patrol officer after 2 years of service. He was experienced, vigilant, and deeply committed to protecting mall property from theft, vandalism, and liability claims. His supervisors described him as thorough, but sometimes overzealous. His colleagues called him the guy who saw threats everywhere. In 6 years, Hayes had compiled a record that should have raised concerns at every level. 14 documented complaints filed with mall management. 14. 9 of them involved allegations that he'd racially profiled shoppers, confronting Black and Hispanic customers, demanding receipts, accusing them of theft without evidence. 2 complaints had resulted in formal written warnings. The other 12 had been dismissed with diversity training that Hayes attended but never internalized. Hayes had a pattern. He stopped Black men in expensive stores and asked what they were shopping for. He followed Hispanic families through parking lots, watching them load bags into their cars, suspicious they'd stolen merchandise. He questioned a Black teenager wearing a $400 jacket, insisting it looked stolen, only to learn the kid's father owned 3 car dealerships. He detained an Indian software engineer carrying shopping bags from Louis Vuitton, demanding receipts, only to discover the man had spent $6,000 that afternoon. He questioned an elderly Black woman about how she could afford a Coach purse, only to learn she was a retired judge. Each complaint ended identically. Hayes received diversity and sensitivity training, attended a 2-hour seminar, signed an acknowledgement form, and returned to patrol. The pattern never changed. Management tolerated his complaints because mall theft was down, and Hayes was good at catching shoplifters, mostly teenagers, and occasional organized retail theft rings. But his methods created problems. His assumptions about who looked like a criminal were shaped by bias so deep he couldn't see past it. That Saturday at 2:12 p.m., Hayes was monitoring security cameras from the central office when he noticed something on screen 7. A Black man in dark clothing running across the parking lot toward a luxury SUV. Hayes zoomed in. The man was carrying what looked like a metal tool. He reached the Mercedes and raised the tool above his head. In Hayes's mind, the narrative was instant. Car break-in, broad daylight, luxury vehicle. He didn't notice the uniform. He didn't register the badge. He didn't see the panicked woman or the gathering crowd. He just saw a Black man about to smash a window on a $70,000 Mercedes. Hayes grabbed his radio and sprinted toward the exit. Do you think mall security officers should face consequences for racially profiling emergency responders during life-threatening situations? Drop your answer below. Webb reached the Mercedes and immediately assessed the scene. The mother was frantic, tears streaming down her face. "My baby! Oh God, my baby!" I locked the keys inside. "The doors won't open. She's not moving. How long has she been locked in?" "I don't know. Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe 15. I just realized. Oh God, is she breathing?" Webb looked through the rear window. The infant was strapped in a rear-facing car seat. The baby's face was flushed deep red. Her head was tilted forward, no movement, no crying. The windows were sealed tight. Condensation covered the glass, a sign of extreme interior heat. "Somebody call 911, Webb said, his voice calm but commanding. A man next to him already had his phone out. "I'm calling now." Webb pulled his Phoenix Fire Department radio from his belt and keyed it. Engine 3847, requesting emergency response. Scottsdale Premium Outlets, Loop 101 and Mayo. Infant locked in vehicle. Hot day, unresponsive. Expedite EMS. The dispatcher acknowledged. Units en route. ETA 8 minutes. 8 minutes was too long. Webb knew the math. In 94-degree heat, a car's interior temperature could reach 140 degrees in 20 minutes. After 15 minutes of exposure, an infant's core body temperature could rise to fatal levels. Brain damage occurred within minutes. Death could follow in less than 10. Webb made the decision every fire captain is trained to make. Break the window, extract the victim, start medical intervention. He pulled his Halligan bar from his turnout gear bag in his truck, a tool he always carried, standard equipment for forcible entry. He returned to the Mercedes and positioned himself at the rear passenger window, furthest from the infant's head. "Stand back, everyone. I'm breaking this window." The mother nodded, sobbing. "Do it. Please." Webb raised the Halligan bar. Before he could strike, a voice cut through the air, sharp, aggressive, commanding. "Sir, step away from that vehicle." Webb turned. A security officer was jogging toward him, one hand on his radio, the other raised in a stop gesture. "There's a baby locked inside," Webb said, gesturing toward the window. "Temperature's over 90 degrees. I'm a firefighter. I need to get this child out now." Hayes reached the group, breathing hard. He looked at Webb, then at the Halligan bar, then at the Mercedes. "I said step away now. You're about to commit vandalism." Webb's jaw tightened. He pointed to his uniform, to the Phoenix Fire Department patch on his chest, to the badge number displayed clearly. "Look at my uniform. Phoenix Fire Department. I'm Captain Marcus Webb. This is an emergency rescue. I'm breaking this window to save this child's life." Hayes didn't look at the uniform. He looked at Webb's face, at his hands holding the tool, at the expensive Mercedes. Breaking and entering is a crime. Put down that tool and step back, or you'll be detained. This is where bias becomes impenetrable. Leonard Hayes had received a 6-second impression from a security camera, a black man with a tool near a luxury car. That impression hardened into certainty. When Webb appeared in front of him, uniformed, badged, calm, professional, Hayes couldn't process what he was seeing. His brain had already decided, this man is a threat. The uniform had to be fake. The badge had to be stolen. The emergency had to be a lie. His assumption was so complete, it overrode logic, training, and the desperate pleas of a mother whose baby was dying. The mother screamed at Hayes. "He's trying to help. My baby's in there. She's not moving." Hayes ignored her. He stepped closer to Webb, his hand moving to the handcuffs on his belt. "Put the tool down now." Webb's voice remained calm, but the edge was unmistakable. "Officer, I am Captain Marcus Webb, Phoenix Fire Department, badge number 3847. I've been a firefighter for 18 years. That infant has been in a sealed car in 94-degree heat for at least 15 minutes. If I don't extract her right now, she will suffer brain damage or death. I'm asking you to step back and let me do my job." A man in the crowd called out, "He's wearing a fire department uniform." "Let him break the window," a woman shouted. "The baby's turning purple." Hayes' expression hardened. "I don't care if you're the fire chief. Put down that tool and put your hands up, or I will physically restrain you." Webb looked at the infant through the window. The baby's lips were slightly parted. Her skin was a dangerous shade of red. Every second Hayes delayed was a second closer to permanent injury. "Officer, I'm breaking this window. If you want to arrest me after I save this child, that's your choice. But I'm not letting an infant die while you verify my credentials." Webb turned back toward the Mercedes and raised the Halligan bar. Hayes lunged forward and grabbed Webb's arm. The parking lot had gone completely silent. People stopped walking. Car doors stayed open. Phones came out. A dozen people were recording. Webb jerked his arm free, his voice rising for the first time. "Don't touch me. This is a medical emergency." Hayes reached for his pepper spray. "You're under arrest for assault on a security officer and attempted vandalism." A man in the crowd yelled, "Are you insane? There's a baby dying in that car." Hayes keyed his radio. Code 10 to 35, parking lot near Polo. Black male, approximately 40s, attempting vehicle break-in, resisting security, request police backup. Webb realized what was happening. Hayes wasn't going to back down. His bias was too strong. His certainty was too deep. Webb could wait for police, let protocols play out, and watch an infant die. Or he could act. He chose to act. "I'm complying under protest," Webb announced loudly, his voice carrying across the parking lot. "I am Captain Marcus Webb, Phoenix Fire Department, badge number 3847. This officer is preventing me from conducting an emergency rescue of an infant in medical distress. Everyone here is witnessing this. Please, record it." At least 20 people were already recording. A teenager angled his phone to capture Webb's badge number. A woman near the Mercedes filmed Hayes grabbing Webb's arm. Webb stepped back, set the Halligan bar on the ground, and raised his hands. "I'm complying. But if this child dies because you delayed emergency response, that's on you." Hayes moved forward and grabbed Webb's wrist roughly, twisting his arm behind his back. "Hands behind your back. There's no need for force." "I'm cooperating." Hayes snapped handcuffs on, tight and deliberate. Webb winced but said nothing. "You're detained for attempted vehicle break-in and resisting security." Webb's voice remained steady, audible to everyone. "I'm a Phoenix Fire Department captain. I'm being detained for trying to save an infant's life. This is being recorded by multiple witnesses." The crowd was growing. A man stepped forward, his voice sharp. "I'm an attorney. This is unlawful detention." That man is clearly a firefighter conducting a rescue. Hayes ignored him. He keyed his radio again. "Suspect detained. Still requesting police backup. Should security officers be required to verify emergency responder credentials before interfering with rescue operations? Let me know what you think." At 2:19 p.m., 7 minutes after Hayes first grabbed Webb's arm, a white Chevrolet Tahoe with Phoenix Fire Department emblazoned on the side screeched into the parking lot. Battalion Chief Angela Rodriguez, a 24-year veteran who'd seen plenty of jurisdictional disputes, but never one this catastrophic, jumped out before the vehicle fully stopped. She'd heard Webb's radio call requesting emergency response. She'd been 2 miles away conducting a building inspection and responded immediately. When she arrived, she saw exactly what Webb had described: a crowd, a detained man in a Phoenix Fire Department uniform, and a baby still locked in a Mercedes. Rodriguez assessed the scene in seconds. She walked directly to the Mercedes, looked through the window, and saw the infant, skin flushed dark red, head tilted at an unnatural angle, no visible movement. "How long has this child been in there?" she demanded. The mother sobbed. "At least 20 minutes. Maybe more." Rodriguez didn't hesitate. She grabbed her radio. "Engine 47. I'm on scene at the outlets. We have a critical infant rescue. Break this window immediately." A firefighter ran forward with a spring-loaded center punch. One strike, the rear window shattered. Rodriguez reached through, unlocked the door, and pulled the infant from the car seat. The baby's skin was burning hot. Her pulse was weak and rapid. She was unresponsive. Rodriguez laid the infant on the pavement and started infant CPR while another firefighter brought oxygen. The baby's core temperature was dangerously elevated, likely 104 or 105 degrees. Heat stroke, possible brain injury. Paramedics arrived within 90 seconds. They took over, starting IV fluids, applying cooling measures, loading the infant onto a gurney. The ambulance left with lights and sirens within 4 minutes of Rodriguez's arrival. Rodriguez turned toward Hayes and Webb. Her expression was cold. "Who detained my captain?" Hayes stepped forward. "I'm the head of security. That man was attempting to break into a vehicle." Rodriguez looked at Webb, still handcuffed. standing calmly with his badge visible, his uniform unmistakable. "Take those cuffs off him, now." Hayes hesitated. He was interfering with mall security. He's a Phoenix Fire Department captain conducting an emergency rescue of a dying infant, and you detained him. "Take the cuffs off now, or I'll file charges for interfering with emergency operations." Hayes unlocked the handcuffs. Webb rubbed his wrists. Deep red marks were visible where the metal had dug into his skin. Rodriguez turned to Webb. "Captain, are you injured?" "No, ma'am, just detained." She turned back to Hayes, her voice dropping to something cold and lethal. "You detained a uniformed fire captain with visible identification while he attempted to rescue an infant from a hot vehicle. You ignored witness testimony. You physically restrained him. You prevented emergency response for over 7 minutes. If that child dies or suffers permanent injury, you will face criminal charges." Hayes's face went pale. "I was responding to what looked like a vehicle break-in. You saw a uniformed firefighter at an emergency scene and assumed crime. That's not a mistake. That's bias. That's dangerous. And that's going to cost you." Rodriguez pulled out her phone and started photographing everything. Webb's wrist marks, Hayes's security badge, the shattered window, the crowd of witnesses. Then she turned to the crowd. "I need everyone who recorded this incident to email their footage to the Phoenix Fire Department. We're documenting everything." At least 15 people nodded and immediately started airdropping files. Rodriguez walked to Webb. "Captain, I'm recommending you file a formal complaint with Scottsdale PD and pursue legal action. This was unlawful detention, interference with emergency operations, and assault." Webb nodded. "Already planning on it, Chief. Should mall security officers face automatic termination after interfering with emergency responders during life-threatening situations? Drop your answer below." Within 3 hours, the videos had exploded across every platform: TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit. Multiple angles from different witnesses showed everything. Webb in full Phoenix Fire Department uniform holding a rescue tool, Hayes grabbing his arm, the baby visible through the window. Webb being handcuffed while the mother screamed. Rodriguez arriving and shattering the window. Paramedics rushing the infant to the ambulance. Fire captain arrested for saving baby's life in hot car mall security detains black firefighter during emergency rescue. Phoenix captain handcuffed while baby cooked in a 140-degree car. The outrage was immediate and volcanic. The International Association of Firefighters issued a statement condemning the detention. The Phoenix fire chief held a press conference calling the incident unconscionable. Civil rights organizations demanded accountability. Arizona State Senator Juan Mendez called for legislation protecting emergency responders from detention during rescue operations. The infant survived, barely. She was transported to Phoenix Children's Hospital with a core body temperature of 105.8 degrees. She spent 4 days in pediatric intensive care, being treated for severe heat stroke. Doctors said another 3 minutes of heat exposure could have caused permanent brain damage or death. Leonard Hayes' life imploded within 48 hours. Scottsdale Premium Outlets placed him on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. The property management company, Simon Property Group, issued a public statement. "We are deeply disturbed by this incident and are conducting a full review of our security protocols. The actions of our security officer do not reflect our values." Hayes was terminated 6 days later. Captain Marcus Webb contacted an attorney on Monday morning. The attorney, Patricia Ochoa, specialized in civil rights litigation. She reviewed the videos, the witness statements, and Hayes' complaint history. 14 incidents over 6 years, all involving people of color, and reached the same conclusion every attorney who saw the case did: indefensible. The lawsuit named Leonard Hayes individually, Scottsdale Premium Outlets, Simon Property Group, and Allied Universal Security Services, Hayes' employer of record. The claims were extensive and devastating: unlawful detention without probable cause, false imprisonment during a medical emergency, violation of civil rights under 42 U.S.C., Power of 1983, racial profiling and discrimination, interference with emergency operations under Arizona Revised Statutes, GARV 13-2809, assault and battery, use of handcuffs causing injury, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent hiring, training, and supervision based on Hayes' 14 complaint history, reckless endangerment of a minor, delays that nearly killed the infant. The complaint included Hayes' complete complaint record, 14 incidents involving racial profiling over 6 years, 9 formal complaints, 2 sustained findings, 12 dismissed with training that never changed behavior. A pattern so clear, so well documented, so consistently ignored that it screamed institutional liability. Simon Property Group and Allied Universal's attorneys reviewed the evidence and reached the same conclusion. This case could not be won. The videos were everywhere. The witnesses were credible. The victim was a decorated fire captain. The infant had nearly died. The complaint history was damning. Simon Property Group settled 11 months later for $18.7 million paid to Captain Marcus Webb. Allied Universal Security Services contributed an additional $3.2 million. The total settlement, $21.9 million. Leonard Hayes was terminated 11 days after the incident. The termination letter was direct and final. Mr. Hayes detained a uniformed fire captain during an emergency rescue operation, ignored clear identification and witness testimony, and physically restrained an emergency responder while an infant suffered life-threatening heat exposure. Despite 14 prior complaints and multiple diversity training interventions, Mr. Hayes continued to demonstrate racially biased security practices that endangered lives. His employment is terminated effective immediately. Hayes' name was entered into security industry databases, flagging problematic terminations. His career in security was over at 38 years old. He released a brief statement through an attorney. "I made a terrible mistake. I am deeply sorry. But apologies don't undo trauma or bring back 7 minutes." Scottsdale Premium Outlets faced intense public pressure. How had Hayes, with 14 documented complaints, remained employed for 6 years? Why hadn't management removed him after Complaint 5? Complaint 9? What training existed to prevent security officers from seeing black professionals as criminals? Simon Property Group conducted an internal review. The findings were damning. 14 complaints over 6 years, only 2 sustained, 12 dismissed without meaningful investigation. Multiple instances where witnesses described Hayes racially profiling shoppers. Training requirements completed but never assessed for effectiveness. Supervisors who noted overzealous behavior in evaluations but took no action. A system that protected liability over people. New policies were announced. Immediate termination for any security officer with 3 or more sustained racial profiling complaints. Mandatory recognition training for emergency responders and their uniforms, badges, and equipment. Real-time incident review by off-site supervisors for all detentions. Independent civilian oversight for complaint investigations. Quarterly pattern analysis of all security stops and detentions. Flagging racial disparities. Automatic notification to local fire and police departments when emergency responders are detained. Should businesses face mandatory federal civil rights investigations after security officers interfere with emergency responders? Let me know in the comments. Captain Marcus Webb testified at the Scottsdale City Council hearing on emergency responder protections. His testimony was powerful, measured, and devastating. "I'm a fire captain with 18 years of experience. I've responded to over 4,000 emergency calls. I've pulled victims from burning buildings, performed CPR on cardiac arrest patients, and cut teenagers from mangled vehicles. I hold certifications in fire operations, technical rescue, and hazmat response. I've received the Medal of Valor. I've been recognized as Captain of the Year." He paused. "On June 14th, I was off duty in my full Phoenix Fire Department uniform, badge number visible, radio on my belt, when I responded to an infant locked in a hot car. I identified myself clearly. I explained the medical emergency. I showed my badge. I cited the temperature and the time exposure. And I was handcuffed and detained for 7 minutes while that baby cooked in 140-degree heat." Another pause. Leonard Hayes had compiled 14 complaints in 6 years. 14. 9 of them involved racial profiling of people of color in that exact mall. That's not bad luck. That's not coincidence. That's a pattern. A pattern that Scottsdale Premium Outlets management ignored until it nearly killed a child. His voice strengthened. $21.9 million is accountability. It's consequence. It's acknowledgement that what happened was wrong. But it doesn't undo those 7 minutes. It doesn't erase the fact that I stood there, handcuffed, watching an infant die while a security officer who saw my uniform, my badge, and my credentials decided I looked like a criminal. He looked directly at the counsel. If this can happen to me, a uniformed, badged, decorated fire captain responding to a medical emergency, what happens to black EMTs? Black police officers? Black doctors? What happens to people who don't have 18 years of credentials and media attention? The room was silent. The real question is, what changes now? Because if we don't fix the systems that kept Hayes employed through 14 complaints, if we don't address the culture that taught him to see a black fire captain as a car thief, then we're just waiting for the next infant, the next emergency, the next preventable tragedy. Should emergency responder interference laws include mandatory minimum sentences for security officers who detain uniformed personnel during rescue operations? Drop your answer. This wasn't just about one security officer or one Saturday afternoon at a shopping mall. This was about a system that let Leonard Hayes accumulate 14 complaints over 6 years without meaningful consequence. Hayes' complaint record told the story his supervisors ignored. 14 documented incidents. 9 formal complaints involving racial profiling. 2 sustained findings that resulted in diversity training. 12 dismissed or closed with insufficient evidence despite witness statements. The pattern was clear. The documentation was extensive, but Scottsdale Premium Outlets and Allied Universal Security Services treated each incident in isolation, never connecting the dots, never acknowledging that Hayes saw black and Hispanic shoppers as criminals until proven otherwise. Leonard Hayes' career is over. That's consequence. Simon Property Group paid $18.7 million. Allied Universal paid $3.2 million. That's accountability. The infant survived after 4 days in intensive care. That's luck. But money and terminations don't undo 7 minutes of a fire captain standing handcuffed while an 8-month-old baby suffered heat stroke. They don't restore the dignity of being treated like a criminal in front of dozens of witnesses. They don't erase the message that even a fire department uniform isn't enough to protect you from bias. The real question is, what changes now? Do security companies finally remove officers after 3 racial profiling complaints instead of 14? Do malls finally implement systems that flag patterns instead of dismissing each incident separately? Do we finally mandate training that teaches security officers to recognize emergency responders, their uniforms, their badges, their legal authority to break windows and save lives? Because if we don't fix the systems that kept Hayes patrolling for 6 years, despite 14 complaints, if we don't address the culture that taught him to see a uniformed fire captain as a threat, then we're just waiting for the next Leonard Hayes, the next Marcus Webb, the next infant locked in a car, while security officers debate jurisdiction. Comment if you believe this should be federal law. Security officers and businesses that detain or interfere with uniformed emergency responders during active rescue operations face automatic federal charges for reckless endangerment and obstruction of emergency services. And if you think these stories need to be told, if you believe accountability starts with awareness and change starts with pressure, then hit that subscribe button. We're not stopping. We're going to keep exposing these patterns. We're going to keep demanding better. We're going to keep fighting for the fire captains, the EMTs, the first responders who risk their lives to save others and deserve to do their jobs without being criminalized for the color of their skin. This isn't just about one security officer or one fire captain. It's about all of us and the world we choose to accept. Because the next time you see a uniformed firefighter breaking a car window, ask yourself, would you call them a hero or a criminal? And ask yourself why the answer might depend on the color of their skin.